Let's get started. So as per our kind of usual process, we'll go through the outline of what we're going to talk about today. And then we'll show you the site on my demo site, and I'll go through the process. We'll pause for some Q&A and kind of see how we go from there. I will say that kind of when we finish kind of the highlighting the new features, I will also send some reminders about kind of finishing the quoting process, which the full cycle is going back to our mark quote as sold and getting those policies recreated in our policy area of our system. So that's the full life cycle. So I'm pretty sure we'll have time to do that as well. Just remind everybody, make your life easier. If you go through the quoting process while you're in the moment, mark those as sold, right? That updates your system for the whole next year. So we'll remind you about that at the end. So we've gone through quite a few changes. We're revamping some areas of our system, renaming. We had sent out a notification on this before, but as a reminder, when we started way early on in Benelinx, we had an object called deal. Then we changed it to RFP deal, and now we've changed it again. So apologies. But it won't change again after this. Market request. So this is where we're going to start the quoting. In past processes, this was kind of a second step, right? So I'm going to show you what's changed, and it's all going to start at that market request, creating that record. We have some new record types that are under that object. And so, just high level, we're going to, select our small group quoting because that's what it is. We're going to create a record. It's going to give us the ability for tracking, and we're going to be able to set defaults. So it's a really simple record to create, right? But really important analytics for what we're tracking. We want to know, is this a renewal quote? Is it a new business quote? Is it maybe an add-on, right? If we have that information, we track it. Now we can report on it. We can make decisions on future, changes to our process. I am going to show you too. It's a little secret. I don't know if any of my team knows. I think I highlighted this the other day. We are working on consolidating processes that happen throughout our Benelinx system. And one of those is if you're using the implementation object or workflow object, the same object, different name, and you're going through that renewal checklist. We've now added that in, and we could potentially add it into your org because that brings it into that process. Hey, am I going to quote small group? Great, here it is, right? We don't have to go over here into another part of the system to do that. It's something that is a new add-on that we'd have to kind of connect those together. But our goal in 2025, right, is to kind of bring some of this stuff together. So I'll show you what that looks like. Once we've created that market request, right, we're going to be able to push the button, right, the get quote 2.0. And the first step, which I know there's some folks here that have been with Benelinx for a long time, this is part of the feedback that you've provided us, so thank you, is that we're actually going to be able to either build the census right inside the get quote, or we'll be able to preview the existing census. So whereas before we had to kind of load the census over here and then go and get our quote over there. And it was like, what am I quoting on and who's there? Who are the people, right? Who are the employees that I'm quoting on? It's going to give you this nice preview screen of that census that you're about to quote on. So you'll be able to adjust that census. You'll be able to reload the census. You'll be able to update it. You'll be able to create new records. You'll be able to remove folks, right? So that nice preview, like right before I quote, I've got 5 people, or I've got 20 people. Are they the same 20 people from last year, right? So we'll be able to preview that and make those adjustments. And the flexibility of being able to do that. I'll show you what that looks like, but a lot more flexibility with adjusting the census that you're looking at. We're removing the location. You're not going to have to worry about that. I'll show you the new census template. You will build it in the system directly. It'll still live there, but you won't have to worry about that on the template. We also give you the ability to export the census, which I personally love. I can take it out if I need to. Okay. Once I have the census builder, right? Once I've loaded my census, reloaded it, updated, adjusted it, then I'm going to go to the next section, which is now I can actually see it. I'm going to be able to sort. I can sort it by first or last name. I can sort it by quote. Do I have folks on my census that I'm not going to quote? And then all of these fields are editable right on that page. Our census wizard was what I used to call it, which is our preview page here. It was pretty much for visibility only, right? Kind of had to go out of the system and adjust if I needed to change something. Now this page is dynamic. I can actually change it right on that page. If a zip code is wrong, if I need to change a dependent, I need to remove or add. I can do it right there. I'll show you on the also that we're moving into this member level assignment. This has been a challenge for us to figure out how to do it efficiently and effectively, being an agency management system first. And I think we figured it out. So more to come soon on that, but we're going to be able to assign the plans that your current users have. Okay, so if I have 3 plans and I've got 5 people, maybe I have 2 people on a bronze, 1 person on a silver, and 2 on a gold, right? I'll be able to assign it right there on the census. And then the output will be able to continue to assign members to plans, and then that proposal will reflect that. So coming soon. When I actually get to the quote phase, one new requirement is that United Healthcare is requiring nationally for a verified NPN to quote United Healthcare products. So we've done a lot of work to make this simple. And so if you provide us with a valid NPN in the back end, we'll load it once. And then when you go to get your quote, you won't have to build it again. Okay. But it is a requirement. You can quote in the system without a valid NPN from United. It just won't pull United Healthcare plans starting January of 2025. So then we're going to create our proposal, right? We're going to be able to select our effective dates and the products. We still have, again, with what we get from IDEON. So this is the heavy, lift of what we're receiving from IDEON. Those are going to still be limited to our ACA medical. Nationally, though, we have access. So California, that's great, up to 100. Other states, it's, up to 50 H-band and composite. Included in that, we'll also be able to quote certain ancillary products, dental and vision, Principal Guardian, Beta, I think are the big ones that are available kind of nationally in the system. So we have the option of adding those additional quotes if we'd like to. We're exposing some of the underwriting. So obviously rating method, you're going to be able to select H-band or composite, but also contribution type. So especially on the dental vision, it will change the outcome if I select contributory versus voluntary. So we're exposing some of that information so you can make those decisions before you get your quote. Once we get the quote, I'll show you the page. It's actually a full page. It's not a pop-up window. Yay. So we get the full screen. So much easier to read. I'm getting older, so I have a hard time seeing things. So now we have a full page where we can display the plan design details, additional information we've added kind of to give us a better description of the plans we're looking at. We've added RX, network, riders, plan code, right? So a little more information about each plan for us to be able to quickly and easily select the plans that we want to propose to our client. It's still self-selection. You're going to go through, the system's going to give you all available plans that are available, right, in the market based on the SIC code, based on your employee demographics, right? A little bit of underwriting still happening in the ACA space, and those are the variables. So everything that's available based on those factors will be returned, and you're going to still self-select, but we're trying to make that process as easy as possible. And with this larger screen, more details, you're going to be able to go through and find those plans quickly. You can sort by almost all the values that are available. We're going to have additional search options and filters, HSA, qualified plans, yay. And then again, we're going to be able to find and go back to our favorites. And the goal is to get you what you need as quickly as possible, right? You probably know when you go into the quoting system what you're looking for. So it's a matter of how do I find it fast? So I can go in, select those products, and move on to completing my proposal. There is a final review page like we had before. I'll be able to self-select my renewal plans. What are the renewal plans? The renewal plans are what the carrier gave you, right? If it's United Healthcare that's in force, United Healthcare is giving you the renewal plans that are available, right? I used to call them MAP plans. Nobody knew what I was talking about. uh, because technically when ACA passed, they weren't actually renewal plans because they were slightly different. So we went back to renewal plans because it's what everybody calls them now. But it is what the carrier provides. This is the alternative, right? This is what they have. This is what we're going to move them to, and that's the closest plan available. So you'll be able to self-select those as well as your alternatives, right? Other options you want the client to consider. You'll be able to remove any plans on that last page before you hit the final button and it creates our proposal. So everything new that we talked about is part of that quoting process. And again, just as a reminder for folks, quoting versus proposals. Quoting is what we get from IDEON. This is the process of us to have a census loaded, get those medical dental vision plans back, full quoting, everything available from the market. Okay, when we hit submit and that final proposal is created, that creates our proposal object in the system, and at that point we've completed all the new features, right? The proposal object and record that gets created is the same as it was before, and I'll show you what that looks like just as a reminder. So we are not going to be doing a training session next week. We have family, friends, everybody's ready for a break. So we will continue these sessions the following Tuesday at the same time. Jessica will be sending out a notification. We'll send out a reminder, next week as well. And that training session will be about and showing you how to generate our benefit guides. Some new things. We'll review the required features and what needs to get filled out to successfully generate it. We have a new table of contents feature, yay. It's going to delete the rows that we don't need and talk a little bit more about the dynamic design for those people that are still on the older version. I'm gonna try to convince you to move to the PowerPoint version. So again, invite will be going out afterwards. All right, let's jump in and take a look at what I just reviewed. I'm gonna move this over to for my notes here so I don't forget anything. Okay. Good old Bob's Bakery. All right. So again, like everything in Salesforce land, everything starts at the account level. I'm inside my client account. And for all those users that are using the quoting currently and have gone through the updates, a lot of updates are happening right now, or we're making some updates to your particular orgs, then most of you have a quoting tab here. So it's similar to what you already have, or exactly how your current org is set. Okay. One thing I want to mention, I'm inside Bob's Bakery. What you won't see is an upload census or an export census button here any longer. Those are old. They're gone. Well, not really, but they should be. Because we're removing those because, like I had mentioned, we're now going to be uploading the census as part of the process, the quoting process. Okay. As I mentioned too, the first step of us to be able to successfully create a quote is no longer to upload the census. That's the old process. The new process is now we're going to create this new record, which used to be called DLRFP. It's now called market requests. So I can go into my quoting tab. I go to new. This is where I'm going to create the record, small group quote request. You can see some other record types that we'll be highlighting later that are new. And now I simply create this record. All I have to do is add in the name, effective date, and you can see here, like I mentioned in my preview, I can track. Is it a prospect? Is it a renewal? Is it an add-on? And where am I at with the status? These are set as defaults to make your life easier. Super easy to create the record. Once the record's created, it looks like this, right? This is the part that everybody forgot or forgets when we go through initial training. It is now the first step, so hopefully it's easier to remember. All you need to remember to get started is I need to find that quote tab. I need to go in and create that market request. And once I have that record created, I go inside the record and guess what? There's my buttons that I need. Okay. This is the record I've created, set the defaults. So regardless of whether I have a census loaded or not, I'm going to go to get quote 2.0. So the first thing that it's doing is it's looking for and seeing if we can find a census. Now it's loading. This is that preview screen I mentioned, right? The preview of the current census. There's quite a bit on this page. So let me explain what all this is doing, right? So this is telling me what account I'm in. It's telling me if I already have a location account. There is already a location account for Bob's Bakery, and it's giving me a preview of all those contacts that are already in the system. If I am loading, if I'm going in to create a quote for a client that doesn't have a location, this is what you'll see. You won't see the additional tab. You'll see an add a new location, and you put the location name in, the county, you'll hit the get quote button. It'll give you options of choosing it, and it'll create the location. This is where I was saying you're not having to put the location account on the census template anymore. We're building it right into the system, and then we'll be able to go and load the census here. Okay, so if it's empty, create your location account first, and then we're going to be able to load the census either by pulling it over from Ease or importing it from a CSV file. Where's the template, you ask? Same place as the old one, right? So the question mark is a great resource for Benelinx clients, for learning, and for warehousing important information. We have our ID on Plan Watch site, right, where we can see what plans are available by state and when they're loaded. But we now have our census template, which is exactly where the original template is, and now we have our new template. We have two versions. We have the Excel version and the CSV version. The Excel version I like because it tells me what are the required fields. So this is what it looks like. CSV, we can't show you highlights, so that's why I like the Excel. These are the minimum required fields. You can see there's no more location account above. Super simple. You should be able to cut and paste this from any other system into this template. All you have to do is make sure you set your relationship, right? If it's an employee, set the employee status. Any dependents will fall below, and the system rolls those up. So if this employee has 3 children, I add the children below before I continue on and create another employee. First name, last name, gender, date of birth, zip code. Nothing else is required. You can see here we're starting to add on some really great additional data points. Email, we'll have elections. We may add some additional fields in the future. Again, the more we can pull into the system, the more we can use, right? If I want to send out an email campaign, I want email addresses for all my employees. So that's why we're going to be adding on additional, but these are the minimum. Cut and paste those in. Don't worry about county. The system will find those counties for you. You do want to save this as and change it to a CSV. CSV UTF-8. Why is that important? Because if you open up and look for CSV, there's several, right? You're going to take the first one, the UTF-8. Make sure you save as. So it's in the same place, same file type. Only difference is no longer have to worry about all those additional fields above, right? We've just got our headers, and we can move our data into this template really easily. And it's up in the question mark. If you need help, go to the question mark. Okay. Soon to come, we will also be able to not only import the census from Ease, but also the census from Employee Navigator. So right now we have 2 different options. Third one coming soon. Big difference with this page, right, is this is now dynamic. As I mentioned, I can now include or not include. I can see what's, which employees I'm going to include in my quote. I may have folks that are loaded into the census that are not going to be included. I can sort it by first or last name, depending on how I like to see the data. Okay, so whenever I see that arrow, I can go up or down, and it's going to sort it for me. I can adjust my zip code. Let's say maybe this zip code is wrong. I can go in and add it, maybe. And then I can go and I hit this little get counties, and it actually will find it for me. I can adjust every variable here. You can see on the very far right, we've minimized the dependents so I can see them if I want, but they're hidden by default. So I can know anywhere that I have an election with dependents, I can open those folks and see what we have loaded in there. So unlike the older system, right? It's a bigger screen, and we have the flexibility not only to sort, but now we can also update. Right here, I can actually also add a new employee, or I can remove them from the quoting. Lastly, I can also export my census. If it's a relatively large file and it's easier for me, export the census, adjust it, and then go back and reload it. So same features. Our goal with this whole new version is that we had to at least maintain equal value, right? So equal to, and now we're going to get greater. So that's always been our, minimum threshold, was we have to at least equalize the old system with the new at the bare minimum. And then there's some great new features coming soon in addition to the flexibility of the new screens. So once we've adjusted, we're now going to save. It's going to, let us know that it's successfully synced with IDN. What I think is interesting about this and the process is kind of giving a little more visibility of what the system is doing. It's syncing with IDN. Why is that important? Well, it needs to make sure we have all the SIC codes correct, all the zip codes, all of the dependent status correct. Are there any overage dependents? So it's doing this syncing because again, we're sending all that information from IDN and returning back a quote. Next page is going to give us the NPN. This is that requirement. You can see here that we've already got the NPN set. This is where if you want us to load it in by default, we're going to need you to get us the information and we'll put it in the back end. And then every single time, you don't have to worry about it like it does here. It's already validated the NPN because I've already got it preloaded. It can be either the agency NPN or one of your primary producers NPNs. Here's where I told you we're gonna be able to decide what we're gonna quote. I show this to folks because right now the only option is create new, but coming very soon, we're actually gonna be able to go back to an old proposal. So again, based on feedback, folks were like, gosh, if I create a proposal, right, get a quote, forgot something, I have to go back and start all over. So we're gonna be able to allow you to go back and grab an old proposal so you don't have to start from scratch. Not yet, but coming soon. Effective date pulls in from our market request, and now I can set the products. Age band and composite. This is where you can see some of the details of underwriting. These are set defaults. You don't have to put them in. I highly recommend not messing with the medical unless the outcome will change. So let me say that again. We set the defaults to the minimum to maximize the number of plans coming back for you to self-select. If you change these values, then the outcome will change potentially. I would leave the defaults for medical if I were you, but it's up to you. We wanted to expose it so you could see what we're doing and what we're sending to IDN. However, when we select dental or vision, you may want to change the contribution type here, right? The return, again, will be different, but if you know that you're going to only need voluntary products for dental, self-select those versus the contributory. And then here's where we're going to be able to, once we've got information completed, we can get our quote. I want to pause for a second because I think I saw a question come in. Do we have any questions we want to talk about now before we continue as this is generating?
No, Rachel, I think the only question specific to everybody is just reviewing what they're able to quote. What types of plans does IDEON have?
So as I mentioned, it's ACA national and whatever they have contracts with. So we don't go and contract with the carriers. IDEON does. So nationally they contract with each carrier, plans and rates by year. And so they do have national coverage. I'll show you that Plan Watch site in a minute as a reminder. However, there's always going to be potential limitations on what they have and who they have contracted with. Certain states, certain areas are a little tougher. They have more monopolies with the carriers, and the carriers are less willing to work with a vendor like IDN. So ACA and dental and vision, and I will show you where that, I'll show you the Plan Watch here in a minute, which again, it's available in everybody's question mark. So you can take a look at what is available. So once it's returned, it's going to generate and show us the preview of all the plan selections. We are fully aware that this is a little bit slower. And the reason being is if some of you have been with Benelinx for a while, in the old system, it would actually batch and pull in some plans. And as you scroll down the page, it would batch more and it would pull it in. And it kind of made it messy. Sometimes it felt like some of the plans were missing. So what it's doing when it's thinking is actually pulling every plan in all at once. And so that's the slight delay of, why is it a little bit slower? We're working on creating some filters to try to improve the timing. Certain states like California have a tremendous amount of plans. And so we're going to be tweaking that a little bit to see if we can make some adjustments to improve that timeliness. But the good news is pulling everything in, right? So that batching won't happen anymore because everything now is here and it's telling us the number of plans that it returned. And now I can actually sort and filter by each one of these columns. This is that preview screen of us now being able to quickly and efficiently find the plans we're looking for, right? I can sort by the plan code. Each one of these columns is sortable. And I can also then go by carrier. I can, over here on the left, I can search by that plan code. I can search by deductible. I can go in and let's see what we got here. Gosh, deductibles have gotten so high. Let's see what we got. 5,000. And now my page is just showing the $5,000 deductibles. Okay, I can resort it back. I can also go and select the metal levels, and the carriers. I still recommend doing this, going by one carrier at a time, right? And now I can go and grab the ones I want as I need. All right, and I've got my HSA eligible. Maybe I don't know the HSA plans. And now I can go select those as well. Okay. I can clear filters. I can still set my favorites. And like I mentioned, we have some additional details here based on feedback from folks all over the country. Some states have a lot of writers, so that gives us a little more information. May look like the plan's identical, but some of those writers might slightly vary. RX as well. I'm going to select my medical, but I also have the ability to select my dental products as well. So go through, self-select, sort and filter. Much bigger screen, much easier for us to be able to navigate. Once I've completed, now I've got my summary page. It's saying this is what you've selected. This is where we're going to select our renewal plans. These are the two products that the carrier has given me as the alternative renewals for the next year, as well as my recommendations. If you don't want the renewing plans, here are some other alternatives that you may want to consider. I can X out of anything I don't want, and now I can create my proposal. So that's the highlight of all the new features. And you can see it's all part of our quoting engine and all of the details that we're getting and returning from, receiving from IDEON. Big improvement design-wise, size-wise, flexibility of sorting and filtering in various places in the system. And we're embedding the census piece into the process instead of having it kind of off to the side where you loaded the census in the account level. So hopefully, I think I can hear some applause. Big improvement. It was time. So this is the part where the new feature ends, right? We create the proposal. The proposal is a record. It's a record that's related to our account. It's related to our market request. And this is where this is where the proposal component of Benelinx is what we then can customize. This is where we can add in our contribution strategy. We can add our current renewals. We can add in additional proposed plans, right? So you can see what we selected, and now we can add to it. We understand the market that you're living in probably includes level funding of some kind. What the quoting engine does is give you that comparison tool, right? Compare to, is it better for us to go level funded with this client and make that recommendation? Or is it better to stay fully insured? We may or may not know until we go through underwriting. We can side by side now compare what we get from IDEON quickly, and we can build our own level funded proposed plan. So we can have a side by side. Here's fully insured, here's self-funded. Which one makes the most sense? If we build those level funded proposed plans, we get to decide because we're going to build it ourselves, right? Manually. Do we put in the final rates? Do we put in the baseline rates? It's up to you, right? Depends on how you guys, what your strategy is, right? You as an agency for presenting those level funded plans. And I can also then add additional products. I'm probably sending out my life and disability, still get the best rates, right? Probably have a relationship with a carrier. So I can add those as well. I just simply add to those proposed plans. In addition, the current renewals, right? Before I forget, I want to go back real quick and show you that IDEON. So what plans do we have? If I go into my resources, this is always available in your question mark. This is my national access. I may start quoting in California. What's available? Holy buckets, a lot, right? We get a ton of carriers and a ton of products from California. This is updated every 10 minutes, and it's right now set a default for year and quarter. I can go backwards, I can select different products, and I can dynamically select my states. I can deselect all, pick the state I'm looking for. Let's grab, why not? Okay. So what's here is available in your Benelinx. We do not load all 50 states at once. It's a tremendous amount of data. And so we have states loaded based on what you've requested by state. If you need a state added, we simply can go in and add that state to your Benelinx system, but we don't just load all 50. It would be a tremendous amount of data that you probably aren't using. Hopefully that helps answer the questions. Let's real quick look at dental and vision since I was thinking about it. Dental and vision are the only other products that we have with IDEON. You can see there are products here. They are very limited on the number of carriers they have, so we have not contracted with them on those other products. Let's go back to Colorado so you can see. Depending on the state, as I had said, principal in some cases, guardian, beam, some of the medical carriers, the BUCAs, have some of the ancillary products as well. So very, very interactive site, very transparent. What you see is what you get, right? So if you're looking at opening, and going into different states, you can do a preview. What are we going to have available by product? What are we going to be able to quote quickly? We do not, I was mentioning this on a prior call with a prospect demo. We don't have any involvement in your relationship with the carriers. We don't have any contracts. We don't even know you're the underwriting. We are a true pass-through quoting. And what that means is what you put in is what you get back. What you put in as for the SIC code, what you put in for the employee census, what you put in for the contribution is what you're going to get returned, all available. We're completely agnostic and we're giving you everything available in that market. So if you do quote in other states that you're not in, you would, and you do sell a new, client in that state, then you would be responsible going direct to the carriers and getting contracted. Okay. Just a little disclaimer, but I think it's important. We're not a GA. We will never be a GA. We're a software company and we're very transparent. We want to provide you with all those market options for you and your clients to make the best decisions based on their needs. Okay. So that was highlighting the Get Quote 2.0. I want to just go through and remind us where everything lives, right? So quoting tab, if I'm in the middle of quoting and I need to leave and I need to come back, I go back to my quoting tab. I go into my market request record and I start over. Boom, get quote. Okay. Once I go through that process that's embedded in that button and I hit save, if I go back, I can see the location account is here. I can go in, I can still see all my census employees. That did not change. We still use the location account. The employees still live here. I still have the ability to touch, feel, update, and edit those folks directly in the system. If I load that census in the button, this is where it goes. Okay. So everything is still organized. You'll see that we did reorder it, or we should have, right? The first step is at the top. Location account used to be at the top of my quoting tab. Now this is at the top because this is the first step. I have to create my market request, and then all these records kind of get created for me below. Location account and updated census. And now I can see all my quotes that I'm building. In my testing site, there's a lot. So I can jump back into that quote that I just did. Maybe, where is it? Probably right here. If I need to see what I just created, right? I can go back to where I was. Yep, this is exactly the quote that I just showed you, the proposal. So all those records are related. And of course, they're always related to my account, but they're all related to my market request. That's the most important record. So getting back to where I was and the history of all those records that get created all live in my quoting. Proposals. When I close my market request, so all my archive lives at the bottom. Most of the time, we're not going to run this many proposals for one client for 1 year. But important to note. I mentioned that we are starting to bring together the process of tracking our renewal with the option for quoting. So some of you, this object is called implementation. Some of you, this object here is called workflows, and some of you, it's called processes. Some of it's checklists, variety of reasons. It's a very custom object for us. But this is where we're tracking our renewal checklist. So for those folks that are using our workflows, this should look familiar regardless of what it's called. The process of renewing business. This is where our automation lives. So we can set it to, send out, create the records, send, an email to your internal staff, time to start the renewal process. Without getting too heavy into details, we'll be doing a training session on this and some of the new updates, but we've added now we can actually attach our small group quoting right into the process. So if I'm renewing a small group, market size, right? The variables that will decide whether or not that section in my renewal process is visible will be market size. If it's large group, we're not quoting small group, right? It won't show. This will disappear. It also will be dependent on maybe or maybe I'm not quoting small group. If I'm not quoting small group, disappears. Magic. So additional fields are available for us to add, variables for us to make dependencies on. This is the beautiful nature of what Salesforce calls lightning pages. We can make this dynamic. We don't need to build 16 versions of the same thing, right? We set variables that are dependencies. If this is small group and I tell the system, yep, this year we're quoting, maybe we're not quoting every year, it disappears. If we're quoting, guess what? That same market request I can build it here and I can track it here. Hopefully I didn't confuse everybody, but what we're doing is we're basically taking the same concept and we're bringing it underneath our renewal checklist as an option. So what lives here can also now live here. I think it makes sense, right? If it's part of the process, why do I have to go over here to build a quote if I'm in my renewal process? It should live in the same place. So we're bringing that stuff together for you. If you choose, we can also keep it separate. But to me, consolidation of processes and part of the process, if I'm quoting small group, then this record should live under that workflow or that checklist. So now we have two different options and potential places for us to be able to create those records and see that overall arching process. I also mentioned that I was going to walk you through the final steps, right? So we talked about Get Quote 2.0. How do I get there? My market request record. I got to find it wherever it lives. Where do I always recommend people going? Go to your account. Everything in Salesforce starts at the account record level. Get quote. Here's my market request. I have to go in that record. Okay. And then I see my buttons that I want. You can see Salesforce is also highlighted here. I can get to this market request record here as well. I can see all my market requests if I want to. Multiple ways to get to the same place. Most important though, is that we get inside the record. For Bob's Bakery. Now I can get to my get quote. We build that proposal, right? We go through the process. We see the census. We select what we want a return on, what type of plans we want return. We see the plans. We select those plans. We add our renewal plans. We hit submit. It creates our proposal. We build our proposal. We customize it. We add contribution strategy. We add our current renewal. We build our level funded plans and our additional ancillary plans that are underwritten. We generate that proposal, give it to our client, right? They say, yeah, great. No, not great. We revise it. We do that over and over again, right? Client makes a decision. Okay. Some of us may go back into the system and jump back to our workflow and continue on. What I want to recommend is before you do that, if you're using our quoting engine, you got to go in back into our market request and mark what was sold. This is the ROI on working inside of Benelinx to get your quotes. 90% of why you're doing it here, not only for all the other things, is so that all the work you did, you don't have to do again. And I think this gets forgotten. And this is why I'm emphasizing this so much. And I'm emphasizing it now. If I don't do this now and I do this in January, I'm going to forget what the client bought, right? Because I have 600,000 of these that I'm going to do, or it feels like it. In the moment, when the client says, yes, this is what we're doing, go back into that market request. Mark what was sold. Let the system do the work for you. Go back to that quote, right? If I had a contribution strategy, it would show me. And tell the system what the client bought. They bought this dental. They bought this United Healthcare plan. Maybe it was the renewal plan. I'm going to set what prior plan was there, right? And I got to tell it, oh, this is the plan it's replacing. This is the, no change. Maybe this is the renewal plan, right? I'm going to select all the different sold policies. Simply check the box. Hit save. Everything I did, all that work I did to build that proposal, copied back to my sold policy, and now it's in Bob's Bakery. I've updated my agency management system for the next year. If I added the contribution strategy at that time, it's here. If I added the rates, the plan designs, let the system do the work for you. Okay. If you don't do it in the time, you might forget what the client bought. You might forget how to do it, right? You may have to go back and redo all that work, right? Do it in the moment. Let the system do the work for you. Market is sold. This is age banded. It'll copy over your table rates. Who doesn't love that? Right? And I have now updated my system. I don't have to go back into Bob's Bakery and renew policies. I did it in the mark quote as sold function in that button. You can see they're set as pending, enforced. We're good, right? We got it all set correctly. So you don't have to do the work or double work. And all the work you did carries over. Less room for error, less room for duplication. And now guess what? The final step is after I push that mark deal as sold or mark quote as sold, I'm ready to generate my benefits guide. Okay. Let the system do the work for you. All the work you did, take advantage of it and not have to redo the work, mark quote as sold. And where do I get to it? Have to go back to that market request. This is the record that warehouses all the buttons. Okay. That's the key. And it's a delayed gratification, right? We have to do all the work, get the quote, build the proposal, generate the proposal, get to the client over and over again, maybe, hopefully not. But once it's done, jump into the system, push one button, mark what was sold, let the system copy, create those records, and now you've essentially updated your system for the whole next year. I can then build my booklet or my guide, which we'll talk about in 2 weeks. I can also then push that exact same information over to Ease or Employee Navigator. That's the value, right? One of many, but efficiency, less duplicate effort, less room for error, less clerical work, less time working till 10 o'clock at night, less time working over the holidays. I'm trying to entice you right now with all the reasons why, right? And we're in the heat of the moment. So let the system do the work for you. Okay, enough said. Any questions? Anything came through? Okay. Well, hopefully that was a good highlight. This is the new feature. Hopefully that was a good reminder that post quoting, we have our proposals and the automation to mark things as sold. And that'll be a perfect segue into building our benefit guides in a couple weeks.
No questions. That there were some specific questions that we answered the individuals, but just a reminder, if they do want to send us our MPN, their MPN, we can get it added. You can send it to support@Benelinx. Just please indicate if it's yours or if it's the agency's, so I can note that accordingly. And I think everyone who's on here who is a current quoting org has the new button added. if they would like to go try now.
Okay. Yeah, reach out if something isn't matching. Everybody's system in Benelinx can slightly vary. That's the beautiful thing about Salesforce in Benelinx. And so while I'm showing you our testing site, it can look a little different, and that's okay because you wanted it your way, and that's great. We're showing you kind of the capabilities of what it can look like. Just knowing that there's some custom work that probably lives in your particular site. But if you see something you like, then reach out and we can, likely add that feature field, etc., to your specific org as well. As we get bigger as a company, as a software company, and the flexibility of our system, we've got a very diverse portfolio of orgs out there that are looking more and more unique. So we're giving you information about what the capabilities are, but not required necessarily. All right, guys. Appreciate your time. And recording will be sent out for the current attendees, and then also available upon request. And then we'll see you in a couple weeks. All right. Enjoy your Thanksgiving.